Morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. I'm feeling a lot better. Christine, good morning. Edgar, howdy, howdy. Defina, we're doing great. We're doing great. Good morning. Good morning. Jason Fiss ask, can you feel it? I can feel it. I can feel it. Good morning, team. We are big time winning, aren't we? We are big time winning. Yeah. Bitcoiner says no sun up in Florida, only clouds, but Bitcoin is up big time. It sure is this morning. Morning winning team. Morning Huddle T Washington. Robert, good morning. Today we ride. Sure, we ride big time today. Good morning. Whoops, I missed one here. Morning dogs. Price doesn't matter. No way. Good morning. Sydney Sweeney is going to be my girlfriend once she sees my 4 megabyte big block. I had to put her in the thumbnail today. That's all anyone's talking about. So it's more of an experiment, guys. I'm wondering if it helps go viral on Rumble. So we'll see. We'll see. I was going to put the Creed guy in there too. Kind of ran out of time, but that's okay. That's okay. We're doing fine. All right, let's just acknowledge what everyone else has already mentioned, right? We got a sunrise happening, maximum sunrise tech operational, doing great. Bitcoin up, working, whatever you want to call it. Things are going great in Bitcoin land. Really great, right? We're loving it. We're loving it. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. So indeed, now my theory, by the way, about my sickness last week, I don't want to bore you with sick talk, but I think I had COVID. That's sort of what I'm left to believe after all this stuff. I took some ivermectin, starting to finally feel better. So there you go. There you go. There you go. All right, let's get some Moscow time. Let's do some Moscow time. It's been a few days, right? There's always a little extra on the weekend. Moscow time weekends. All right, this is some global warming. We're going to start with the global warming stuff. We love the global warming stuff, right? So this was an article written this weekend. Ski resorts' era of plentiful snow may be over due to climate crisis, or it's March. Their era of plentiful snow. January, February. There they go. Yeah. They're saying it's the U.S. ski industry is losing billions as average season has become 5 to 7 days shorter. 7 days shorter. Oh my God. Oh my God. I did check today out of curiosity how my local ski hill was doing. Great. It's doing great. No problems. This one's good. Ireland's weather could take Arctic turn up to 15 centigrade dip, scientists believe. So they're saying here that because of climate change, Ireland could become 15 degrees colder. Okay, colder. This is also about the weather in America from Axios, saying February's extreme weather events left distinct patterns across the country and shifted Americans' ideas of what winters now look like. So this winter was so warm, they're saying in Axios that it's shifted our idea of winter. It's true. It's true. It's Axios. You got it right. All right. I mentioned I had COVID. Everyone saw this. This was one of the great Moscow time stories of the weekend. Everyone shared it. So you've seen it already. It's just too good to not put on the official Moscow time record. I got to read it out, right? If I didn't read it out, it wouldn't be in the records. It's official. We can pretty much treat COVID like the flu. Oh, sorry. I screwed up the delivery. Let me read it again. It's official. We can pretty much treat COVID like the flu now. Here's a guide. So now, in case you're wondering how to treat COVID like the flu, they have a guide for you. Okay, so they have a guide. Oh, these are the same scientists as the one from the snow stuff and also the COVID stuff. This is in Science News. So these are those experts. Okay, Science News. They must read it. That's where I think they're getting their science from. It's really important because Dune 2 opened this weekend. Okay, and this is the story. Arrakis, the fictional planet in Dune, would be inhospitable but livable for humans, researchers say. But the giant sandworms depicted in the movies and books, they're implausible, they said. So that's a headline. Thank you. Thank you, Science News. We needed your scientists to tell us that the worms were implausible. Thanks. Super science. Super science. Okay. And we love the super science. Yeah. Robert, 12 feet of snow in California. California's snowed in. You can't even go there. We can't even go. All right. This one's good too. You know, Letitia, our favorite attorney general of New York, Letitia James. So she tweeted this that a Masterpiece Cake Shop, a Colorado bakery, refused to make a customer a cake when they found out it was to celebrate her transition. This bakery has discriminated against LGBTQ plus people before, and I'm urging the Colorado Supreme Court to stop this transphobic discrimination. So readers added some context, though. You might want to know what they actually denied. You know, just context, right? Context can't hurt you, can it? Let's see. The same customer who asked for a cake with a cake topper described as a large figure of Satan licking a 9-inch black dildo, an actual working model that can be turned on before we unveil the cake. So it wasn't exactly a cake they were asking for, was it? But, you know, maybe Letitia's right. Thank you, Letitia. This one's good. So the Washington Post, a lot of people are talking about this weekend. The Washington Post wrote the following headline: The Zombie CVS. The Zombie CVS, a late capitalism horror story. So they're blaming the CVSs around America that have either no items left on shelves because it was all stolen, or what items are left on shelf are behind a lock and key to protect them from getting stolen. That branch of that franchise in America, right? They're saying it's because of late stage capitalism. So Michael Malice says, corporate journalist Maura Judkis, who is a literal demon, tries to frame the empty CVS as a function of capitalism. The reason this particular CVS's shelves have been empty are complex. They're complex. She also said that shoplifting is not a big deal. Okay. She also said that shoplifting is no big deal because the U.S. is built on stolen land. So obviously, you can steal everything, guys. Go for it, right? America's stolen, so everything else, that's how it works, right? Something is stolen, so everything connected to it is stolen. Everything. So you can rob what you want. That's what the Washington Post is saying. This one's great. So we got a lot of Minnesotans here, right? So all you Minnesotans around, we've got a really important story for you. This is for Jevi and for everyone. Why painting without a license should be illegal in Minnesota. Painting without a license should be illegal. Of course. Imagine all these people that have been painting forever without licenses. I mean, what if they're drunk? What if they're drunk and painting without a license? What are they going to do? No drinking and painting anymore. That's finished. I am going to help end drinking and painting. Okay. Minnesota lawmakers are at best offering a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. At worst, they're weaponizing the law to benefit special interests. This is great. So because we're already in Minnesota, we're just going to keep going up a little into Canada, right? Canada has where I think you might actually need a license to paint already. I think you might. You never know what people might do with that paint. So they're going to go help out in Ukraine, right? They're going to go give some of their Canadian trash tokens and some other stuff to help out in Ukraine. But they're letting us know here that Canada pledges millions to gender-inclusive effort to remove landmines from Ukraine, right? Because you don't want landmines being removed by like sexists. You know, imagine like just a bunch of sexists, men went out and removed landmines, right? Now, I'm 100% for this. I want these broads out there fixing them landmines just as much as any man is doing it, right? That's really important to me. I think we need absolute total sharing of gender responsibilities when it comes to landmine removal. And I want the women out on the front lines, because what do you got to do? You just got to poke with a stick and see if you find one, right? A woman can do that, right? Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. So that's great. NBC News. Here they're talking about Trump, of course, right? And here's what they have to say. Warning about the dangers of illegal immigration at the southern border has long been one of Donald Trump's campaign mainstays. But lately, the former president has seized on a new problem that migrants are bringing: languages. Okay. Trump warns of languages coming into our country. Oh my God. So Washington Post is trying to tell you that Trump, like, his main priority now is going to be to make sure there aren't a lot of languages in America. He's going to go around, hey, what language is that? Is that already here in America, or is that a new language in America? This one's good too. Okay. Donald Trump made a renewed attempt to turn criticism that he is a threat to democracy on its head, accusing President Biden, without evidence, of conspiring against the United States with his policies at the southern border. It's without evidence. The New York Times, right? Best of late night. Stephen Colbert declares the Supreme Court unconstitutional. Aggravated by the latest delay in Donald Trump's election subversion trial, Colbert unleashed the power vested in me as late night host against the court. It's perfect. It's perfect. And this is our last one of the day. And this one really is a nice one. This is high quality Moscow time. Ready? You got to spot it. You got to spot it, though. Ready? You got to spot it. A former singer of a David Bowie tribute band who entered the Capitol on January 6th and now works as a writer. Okay, he works as a writer for Glenn Beck's The Blaze website, was arrested on misdemeanor Capitol attack charges after turning himself in to federal authorities. So he works as a writer. What's another word for a writer who works for a news outlet? What's another word for a writer who works for a news outlet? So, of course, they won't say journalists, right? They won't say journalist. That would look too bad. So there's no word that this person's a journalist, according to the mainstream media. He's just a writer. He's just a writer. It's fine. He's just a writer, right? All right. So that's what we got. And indeed, Stephen Baker is his name. And Steve Baker, a lot of people wondering, like, why isn't the, everyone Navalny, right? And you wonder why people get all excited when there are big mass layoffs in mainstream media, right? Why do people get all excited? Right? It's for reasons like this. All right. So Vigilant Fox does this really great thing where every week he takes the 10 stories they chose not to tell you. He calls it the Media Blackout series. So he's on episode 12. So for 12 weeks now, the Vigilant Fox has released these 10 stories. I read a few of them too. I don't think I hit it every Monday, but maybe I will start because it's excellent. So here's what he said we've missed, right? So number 10, top experts accuse the government and big pharma of COVID vaccine cover-up. Number 9, Robert Kennedy urges investigations into SSRIs and mass shootings. So he's saying here that which we've heard him say a few times, that the psychological prescription medicines might have something to do with the attacks, right? And school shootings and stuff like that. 8, Joe Rogan makes a profound statement about high levels of fluoride in drinking water. It says there is a direct correlation with low IQs. And by the way, Quebec never had fluoride in the water when I grew up. I think they did move to put it in a few years ago, but it was never a thing in Quebec. It was all for many years, absolutely verboten, not allowed. And, where I'm from, it's all well water anyway. We don't even mess with that stuff. But that's something I've heard about for a long time. I mean, the fluoride water thing is something that's been around since the earliest days of the internet, right? That was like one of the original things to get out there on the internet if you were into that kind of stuff back then. Number 7, CIA built 12 secret spy bases in Ukraine and waged shadow war for 10 years. Bombshell New York Times report confirms. Number 6, Dr. Phil issues a stunning criticism of the US government. Number 5, Hunter Biden finally admits Joe Biden is the big guy. Number 4, Tucker Carlson poses an unexpected COVID vaccine question, which I don't know what that was talking about. Neil Oliver, the fellow on GBN News from Scotland, warns a storm is coming for the guilty. Number 2, troubling, is it a storm or is it a space drop? I don't know, we got to ask Neil more. Number 2, troubling new evidence shows third pipe bomb camera deliberately turned away from crime scene on January 6th. And number 1, COVID vaccine mandates declared unlawful by landmark Supreme Court ruling, right? So there you go. That's what we found out. Now, here's something that we talk about all the time, and I think is important to continue to underline, and that is that people who continue to get their news from mainstream media sources exclusively are suffering from such brain damage and such mental incapacity that we shouldn't take their opinion seriously anymore. What we're dealing with are mentally ill or mentally retarded people. You know, you take your pick. It could be mental illness, but mental retardation is another way to explain where they're at, right? And it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. And they're not going to report on their failures. They're not going to report on how much influence they're losing. They're not going to report on their weakness or their inability to move the needle anymore or any of those things. Mario Nawfal writing here that mainstream media is dying and no one is trying to save them. Meta is now refusing. So this is what I've been arguing for a little while, is that you would see people like Bezos and Zuckerberg and others who can't really stick around with these losers anymore are going to have to distance themselves as we get closer and closer to the elections in autumn or to whatever event precludes any need for elections. So what we have here is Zuckerberg, I think, starting to get more and more engaged, right? And he came out and said, Meta is refusing to pay news organizations, stating it will not enter into new commercial deals for traditional news content. Media organizations will be able to retain their pages on Meta despite an 80% loss of readers. So as mainstream media is dying, Facebook never paid them for all the traffic they've driven to the platform, right? So, and they're not going to, right? So they're not going to. And why would they, right? Because this is the kind of story that, what I'm about to mention, that Jared Kushner versus Hunter Biden, the way the media is handling it. It's the kind of story that requires people to be stupid in order to follow it the way it's being presented. Like there's no other way you could follow the Jared Kushner is Hunter Biden story, which is what they're trying to push now, right? Instead of talking about Hunter, instead of saying, well, Hunter is completely corrupt and you actually don't need to show money going to the big guy. It's been a long-standing provision in American corruption law that if a family member simply receives payment, that's enough. Right? You don't have to say it goes to the actual elected person. It doesn't matter. So they're continuing to try to say, well, you know, Hunter's bad, but what about Jared? If we're going to do investigations into Hunter, what about Jared? Right? So Vanity Fair with an article on it right now saying a Democrat lawmaker has demanded his GOP colleagues stop wasting time on Hunter Biden and investigate the $2 billion Jared Kushner's investment firm received from Saudi Arabia. Now, again, you've got to be financially literate, stupid, mentally ill, retarded to understand that a transparent fund allocation of $2 billion, which is registered, there was a press release when it happened, right? That this is somehow the same as what Hunter Biden has been up to, right? We know what business the Kushners run. They've been running investment businesses for years. They have a huge return on their different vehicles and whatever it is they're up to, right? So Vanity Fair is requiring, in order to even put an article like this together, they've got to assume their audience is stupid. There's no other way you could run an article like that, right? Now, people are going to break it down. You get the markets work. Jeff Carlson saying, that's not $2 billion to Kushner. It's $2 billion to be invested by Kushner's firm, private equity, but investigate anyway. While you're at it, can you please explain how Hunter was able to secure a $1.5 billion investment from Bohai Capital, a subsidiary of the Bank of China, right? In December 2013, Hunter flew with his father to China on Air Force Two. The vice president was meeting with China's new president, Xi Jinping. During the visit, Hunter helped arrange for Jonathan Lai, CEO of Bohai Capital, a subsidiary of the Bank of China, to shake hands with Vice President Biden. Afterward, Hunter met with Lee reportedly for a social meeting. 10 days after the trip, Lee's Bohai signed a deal with Hunter's Rosemont Seneca partners to form a $1 billion joint venture investment fund called Bohai Harvest RST, right? So there you go. But again, you require your audience to run these kinds of stories. You have to be sure your audience is stupid. And if they're not stupid, you've got to trick them. So that's what we're left with. We're left with tricky media companies that now have to admit their audience is mentally ill or stupid, or you take your pick. Otherwise, they have to run a different type of article, right? The different type of fake news. But it looks like they've settled down with their appreciation for the lack of mental rigor in their audience. And so they can just give them stories like this. But again, we're continually trying to contrast what the persuasive power of this rump of media is, right? Again, they're not attracting smart people anymore, right? They're not like, wow, this smart person is going to be reading Vanity Fair to find out what happened to Jared Kushner. Anyone with a little bit of financial experience understands that there's nothing similar whatsoever to what Jared Kushner is doing and Hunter Biden are doing. They're not even in the same ballpark. Not even in the same ballpark. So, but it requires your audience to be that dumb. Now, one of the big roles Bitcoiners have to play in the coming 2024 election, or in this cycle, or in this year, or all the things that are going on, as Bitcoin goes up and as Bitcoiners are getting rewarded, let's say, for the risks and for the asymmetric bet they placed, and for shorting the US systems the way we have. One of the big things, one of the big jobs we have, I've been arguing for a long time, is election integrity education for Americans. Because again, everything we understand from Bitcoin actually applies to the systemic integrity of the US election system. And what I mean is, it's the same line I've repeated many, many times, and we have to repeat it many times because I think it is one of the most important things Bitcoiners can deliver to the world in 2024, despite the huge price increases, despite all the other amazing things we can do this year. The number one thing we can do to help push Bitcoin past where it's already at, the thing we can do to help push America and the systems that are collapsing to the brink, is to expose our understanding of the corruption of the US election system based on our understanding of the Bitcoin system. And that is that engineering trade-off between convenience and credibility, and optimizing for credibility first. Now, it's this kind of quote that I'm about to give you. This is Merrick Garland. So again, go back to the theme of we're only dealing with low IQ midwits left. This is what Merrick Garland actually said in public this weekend. He went in public and said this. This is the Attorney General of the United States of America, the same low IQ motherfucker suing Kraken, the same guy who, was supposed to be on the Supreme Court. That guy, right? So he comes out and says the following. Speaking in an Alabama church, he says election integrity efforts such as voter ID requirements and restrictions on ballot drop boxes are discriminatory, burdensome, and unnecessary. So imagine what he's saying is that ballot drop boxes having like controls on them, no, that's racism. That's unnecessary and racism, right? Nuance Bro says if you're too dumb to get an ID, then you shouldn't be voting, right? So again, one of the big things Bitcoiners can do in this is to expose what this actually means. What it actually means when you have someone out there arguing for lack of credibility in your system and is arguing that convenience, anything less than convenience, is discriminatory, burdensome, unnecessary, all these stupid things. What they're actually saying is that you don't need, and put it in Bitcoin terms. Imagine if someone said to you, I have this new blockchain. We don't actually need confirmations, right? No, we don't need nodes. It doesn't matter. It happened. It's just happened. Any amount of checking doesn't matter. It happened. It just happened, right? Don't sweat it. So if you're going with that, then you've got to hope your audience is that dumb, because otherwise it won't make sense to anyone who's thinking for 1 second. I was reading this out to people who are never involved in politics this weekend, just to explain to them what's being argued, as I think many Bitcoiners should start doing, right? These are the types of quotes where you don't have to argue that the elections were stolen. If you just say that to someone, right, that the Attorney General is out there saying that drop boxes and voter ID are discriminatory, unnecessary, and a burden, right? If you go out and say that, and you say that that's what they're arguing in public, they're going to say, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make sense, right? But it will get them thinking on their own. Now, at the same time, we get Georgia coming out with the following. Rasmussen report saying Georgia update. This is what's been going on in Fulton County with the absentee mail-in ballot of the 2020 election thing that's going on over there with I'm not sure with Fanny Willis, but this is related. It's the same county. It's Fulton County. So what we found out from this is that no records were created capturing 148,000 2020 mail-in ballot outer envelope signatures. They didn't do any signature matching, right? That the new electronic signature verification equipment wasn't used, and that there was no proof of chain of custody at all. None. So it turns out that the chain of custody documents that were requested never came. So again, I will ask you as Bitcoiners, if there's no chain of custody, if there's no verification of any votes, were there votes? Put it in Bitcoin terms. If there were no transaction confirmations, was there a Bitcoin transaction? Of course not. Of course not, right? If the nonce didn't add up, was there a Bitcoin trend? What did a miner find a Bitcoin? No, it never happened, right? There's protocols to these things for a reason. There's an election. There are election protocols for the integrity of the election for a reason. The simpler the system, the more credible, right? Voting on one day with paper ballots in one room counted on the spot, simplest system. Shortest and smallest attack surface area. And that's how people think of cryptographic adversarial thinking, by the way, right? You think of cryptographic innovations, and do we do them? Like, do we fork Bitcoin for this reason or that reason or whatever? What you always have to measure is whether or not it expands the surface area of attack or shrinks it, right? So, and that's really a principle of thinking of this in terms of like a battlefield in a war, and the amount of surface area available for an attack is a really important metric in order to gauge the overall riskiness of a new system or proposal or whatever. So here, by saying that there's no signatures, no chain of custody, the surface area of attack is infinite. There becomes a million ways you can cheat, like a million. So the surface area of attack just gets increased so great when you optimize for these types of systems. Now, this is something that many people in Bitcoin argued against Ethereum for many years. The surface area of attack is so large because the system is so convoluted that it's not credible. There's just too many ways to attack it, right? But again, we have to go back to just the main idea that I'm referencing here, is that you require a bunch of stupid people on one side that consume this kind of stuff without questioning and say, well, okay, that's fine. But who's going to keep listening to people like this? Who's going to keep listening to Merrick Garland? Who's going to keep listening to all these people that are pushing all of this nonsense, the Jared Kushner stuff, right? It requires stupid people. Otherwise, the arguments don't work. It gets better. You had Mayorkas, right? The guy who's getting impeached. Oh, and just so you can see the formula as it's growing. This is from the New York Times this weekend. This is from Mark Elias, right? Retweeting this. Mark Elias is the Democrat lawyer who does all of the gerrymandering around convenient elections. He's the Ethereum guy of the election systems, right? So Mark Elias is the Ethereum promoter inside the US election systems. He's a lawyer. He's out there pushing this stuff. And this is what he says, right? So the New York Times already starting to try and get its low IQ readers and its low awareness readers to get excited because Trump is now getting involved in the ballot harvesting game, right? So they're saying Trump's allies ramp up campaign targeting voter rolls. New York Times. Mark Elias outright declares this the most important story of the week. Why? You know why. You know why. A network of right-wing activists and allies of Donald J. Trump is quietly challenging thousands of voter registrations in critical presidential battleground states. So Mark Elias out there, trying to warn people that this ballot harvesting thing might not be as easy as it was when we had a COVID pandemic to hide behind, right? It's getting a little harder. It's getting a little harder when Merrick Garland can't go on stage and say voting ID is racist. It's getting a little harder once we have enough forensic evidence that we didn't have an election in 2020. I don't know when the last time we had a real election in America was, but it sounds like it was a long time ago. So again, we're dealing with low IQ base of content consumers getting smaller and smaller and smaller, dwindling more and more. The people selling the propaganda are dumber than ever, right? Merrick Garland isn't exactly like a legal genius here, right? Like, forget about the corruption. He's not a smart guy, right? There's a lot of lawyers out there much, much better than him. And for him to just come out and lie like this, well, I mean, maybe he doesn't know better. I don't think he's that dumb, right? But then you had Mayorkas, the guy getting impeached. He's the Homeland Security Secretary. And he comes out, he has to go on Face the Nation, which is a big Sunday low IQ, low awareness news channel. And he comes out and they're asking him about the case in Georgia of Laken Riley with the newcomer, the newcomer who killed her. And so they're talking about the newcomer, and he's literally unable to answer the question. And this sort of padded glove on his team, CBS journalist, is trying to give him a way to answer the question, and he can't. He just comes across as reading his notes, can't say her name. The whole thing looks absolutely ridiculous. And it proves they just don't have an answer for it. There's no way they can lie out of it. But what I found more telling is, again, you're dealing with, sort of low IQ people like that are unable to even advance their whole point of view any longer, right? So there you go, right? So that's what's going on. Then you get this senator from Connecticut who comes out and tries to do the same thing. He says, poll after poll shows. So he goes on one of these other shows, right, and does the same thing. Poll after poll shows an overwhelming majority of Americans disapprove of how President Biden is handling the border. This is the journalist asking him. And now we've also seen the flow over the border dramatically increase under this president. And this is what the senator comes out and says. What we also know is that under Donald Trump's presidency, crossings at the border were at a 10-year high. And this is exactly why I think the president and Democrats should go on the offense, because the vast majority of the country believes that we should have robust legal immigration, but that we want tighter control at the border. And right now, there's only one party that can deliver that, only the Democrats. Right? So again, this stuff isn't going to work. It's too weak. It's too stupid. And it doesn't persuade people anymore. Some of this stuff worked a little better a few years ago, but this is the amplification of it, the capacity of it is dying as quick as you can imagine. So again, they keep prodding these people out, and they just don't have any way of persuading anybody anymore. How many voters do you think having Merrick Garland, this senator from Connecticut, and Mayorkas speaking publicly this weekend, how much persuasion did the three of these people actually achieve this weekend? The answer is none. The answer is they did not turn a single vote to their side. They did not motivate a single voter. They only reached the low IQ, low awareness people that they're used to getting anyway. And the problem is they're losing them. So they're not gaining them. They're losing these people. And one can't see any end to it, right? One can't see any end to this. Now, you also get RFK, who is not like the rest of these Democrats, and he goes on a couple of the shows this weekend. So first up, he was at ETH Denver, right? So I helped organize this, by the way. I gave the contact to the ETH Denver organizing people. Some people are a little pissed because RFK went there and said that he's going to buy Ethereum after the event. And now all these Bitcoiners saying, oh God, RFK is going to buy Ethereum. Look, guys, understand something. He's there to make some campaign donation money, and he's got to get Colorado and a bunch of crazy volunteers on his side. I don't really care if he's doing a little virtue signaling for Ethereum. Okay, guys, it doesn't bug me, and it doesn't make me upset or RFK. Oh my goodness, you've betrayed us, right? Yeah, it's not a great look, but again, he's up against it. He's got one thing to do, which is to make sure he's on the ballot of every one of these states. Colorado's an important one to him. He could actually do a lot of damage in Colorado. There's a lot of people that like him there. And for him to have come out and said he might buy some Ethereum after the event, he was on stage with Caitlin Long, by the way, right? So anyway, people criticizing him, people saying, oh, he's a sellout and all this stuff. I don't care. Again, this idea of someone can't court shitcoiners in order to help them win an election, or shitcoiners to donate money to them, or anything like that, I don't understand it, right? So, but that's fine, right? Free country, mad cringe. Yeah, I get why people don't like it, right? I get why people don't like it. I'm just saying it doesn't bug me. So he also did two other really good things this weekend. One of them was he went on one of these shows on CNBC and talked about Nordstream pipeline in the Russia situation. So Liz Smith, another one of these low IQ journalists that aren't going to persuade anyone, not really even in the game anymore, says he peddled a wildly irresponsible conspiracy theory that the US blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, right? And then she says, if we learned anything from Donald Trump, it's how dangerous it is to have a president who parrots Russian propaganda, right? So that's what they're trying to say here, that he's parroting Russian propaganda. Now, CNBC started freaking out, right, because he said that. And Kennedy says, and that Germany was freaking out because they need our gas, right? So Kennedy says, yeah, they're freaking out because we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline and we deindustrialized Germany. What are we doing in Ukraine? Let's make peace over there. Let's get Russian gas back into Europe so that we can reindustrialize Germany and reindustrialize Europe. Let's make our gas at home and use it for manufacturing and reindustrialize America. Germany is making a choice to boycott Russian gas, which is not even really doing. It's still benefit. They're still buying it. They're just getting it through. India, right, at a much higher cost. He also launched another truth bomb, according to Vigilant Fox, saying the Mexican drug cartel is running America's immigration policy. You can say that's a good thing, right? You can say that that's a good thing, he asked. The people who are coming over have been exploited, extorted, robbed, raped. They come over here, they're exploited they can't work legally. They're exploited by unscrupulous employers who are paying $6 to $8 an hour, and those employers, contractors in New York City, are competing against union shops. So they're lowering the returns on labor in our country, they're lowering salaries in this country, and there's no question about it. So he comes out and oh my goodness, Germany still has your Gazprom stocks confiscated? Holy Moses. Holy cow. So many Bitcoiners freaking out about RFK proving their NPCs. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, how can people not understand what's going on? Like, he needs psycho volunteers. And if he just says, I'm going to buy some Ethereum and then you get what he needs, that's a crime. I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't make sense. So who is currently the most Bitcoin aware? No, it's Vivek by far. Yeah, Vivek by far. Vivek has the, I'd say Vivek has the Um, I'd say Vivek has the best understanding of Bitcoin now. Remember, I learned about Vivek in the first place because of his anti-CBDC stance. And at the time when he took his anti-CBDC talking points, it was the first national profile I think he'd ever gotten in America. Tucker brought him on to talk about it. And that I didn't know him was a shock to me, in the sense that I would probably, having been in Bitcoin media for as long as I have, would have known everyone or anyone that would have been at the caliber or quality to go on Tucker's show to talk about this stuff. Just like I know Marty Bent, he'd been on the show a bunch, Nick Carter, there's a few folks that Tucker had on before. And so when someone came on about a subject that I know so much about and I didn't know him, that surprised me, right? What's going on here? So that's why we looked into it, and he's coming at this from a pretty educated point of view. So that's where that came from, right? I wonder who orange pilled Vivek. Yeah, me too, Dr. Satoshi. I didn't ask him that. Yeah. Boycott even in the stock. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. RFK just using kind of street smart, and besides, it's political theater, so chill. It's just it's just theater, man. He's got to make money. Like, the only reason he went, and be honest, guys, the only reason he came to our Miami show is because we passed the hat, right? We passed the hat big time in Miami for him, and that's what they're there for. They don't care about any of this stuff right now. Some of these guys, they're there now. He also said this week that transactional freedom is only available through Bitcoin, right? He said all kinds of other stuff, but people will forget that, right? But again, here we go, and we're gonna get to the Bitcoin markets in a second about this stuff, because things become important as I tie it together. But remember, also we said that that Grok was going to start breaking down all these spending bills that we're getting this week, all these omnibus bills in DC, and it's going to start saying what's being hidden, what's not, what's being obfuscated, and all that kind of stuff. So a whole piece of the bill was broken down, and it wasn't Grok, just normies right now. I think Grok should do it today or something like that. I haven't seen it yet. But Zero Hedge reporting the entire U.S. $1 million barrel Northeast gasoline supply reserve will be required to be sold and closed in fiscal 2024, according to a bill text of government funding legislation unveiled Sunday. Did China write this bill? So a lot of people asking, like, what do you mean? We have to sell because it's a funding bill, right? So this is the funding bill. And now the funding bill is requiring that America sell its oil reserves to whoever, but I guess China would buy them. And then it's a matter of law. You can't get out of it, right? So I don't know what it means, but people are going to be picking up on this and following it. And that's why when we analyze the oil and the law and what's going on with Germany and Gazprom and the Nordstream pipeline, well, that's why things start to become really important for the US dollar and the petrodollar going forward, right? Because now that the sanctions and the energy systems were used as weapons, it becomes more and more obvious that the business of America is war. And the business that it tries to perpetuate is to gather resources so that no one can fight us because we have all the resources. And if there's one part of the map that still has resources we don't control, well, it's their turn next. And it looks like it's Russia's turn next. We control most of the oil in the Middle East, and Russia has this ability to compete, and it looks like they want to put an end to it. So David Sachs here was underlining just how much this is becoming explicit with the Ukraine and Russia war, in that before we were told it was not a proxy war. Now it's openly admitted throughout that it's totally a proxy war, right? There's all kinds of proof that what's going on there. We've got English soldiers. There's rumors this week, and the Germans are going to attack, Americans threatening if they don't get money for Zelensky that they're going to send American soldiers there. So that's a big part of it, right? But also some things that David Sachs was sharing here, which is that when the Soviet Union fell, right? NATO and its expansion, it was known already at the time that any expansion would create hostility. That's why there were all these deals signed that NATO wouldn't expand forward. So he says, bureaucracies often take on a life of their own and end up causing the very problems they were supposed to solve. NIH was supposed to prevent pandemics, so it funded gain-of-function research causing a pandemic. NATO was supposed to prevent a war, so it expanded to Russia's border and sought to encircle it, provoking a war. People outside the bureaucracy believe its job is to solve problems. People inside the bureaucracy understand that their job is to expand their power. That typically happens when problems get worse. So here they were already warned, it turned out, in 1997. 50 prominent foreign policy experts told President Clinton that any desire to move NATO would be a policy error of historic proportions that would decrease Allied security and unsettle European stability. They pointed out that with Russia, NATO expansion continues to be opposed across the entire political spectrum, will strengthen the non-democratic opposition, undercut those who favor reform and cooperation with the West, and bring the Russians to question the entire post-Cold War settlement. They also pointed out that in NATO itself, the alliance has indicated that the policy is open-ended, right? So there you go. We've got this situation where where we've known these were a problem. We expanded for the energy. It looks like we're willing to do anything to take their energy market. Doesn't matter if there's a risk of war. You can't criticize it, because if you criticize it, then you're a Putin ally, right? And you're lying, right? You're lying if you say we did it, even though we benefited from the Nordstream thing. So, but here's where things get even more interesting for the petrodollar and for where things are headed, and for why it's so important for Bitcoiners to both win the election conversations at every table in America, right? As you go to an all-time high with Bitcoin, as we move up, as everyone says, Bitcoin, what's going on? What does it mean? One of the things we have to continue to share is that our understanding of Bitcoin means we understand the integrity of election systems as well. And we understand, because of that, what's going on in America a little better than most people who are either Republican or Democrats, who still think, that they can prove the elections were stolen because of crooked Democrats and things like that, which you can't. You can't prove any of it. There's no proving. Only understanding that the system is compromised and is not there to produce a result. We would have found out a long time ago if the system was being scammed by one side, because the honest side would have told on them, right? They never really did. The Republicans in Georgia are super corrupt. That's why they're not interested in getting to the bottom of this stuff. There's Republicans who are up to it just as much as Democrats. We haven't had real elections in America without corruption in a long, long time. Don't know when. The last ones were. But here's the most depressing thing you'll read all day, but it's also very positive, right? So this is from Canada, of course, the dumbest place in the world, filled with the stupidest people, right? They believe everything that the low IQ Mayorkas, the low IQ Merrick Garland, the low IQ Connecticut senator, they believe all of these people, all the mainstream news. Canada, perfect. So here's a new bill in Canada. I told you about the one they have for that Jordan Peterson is speaking out against, which is the one where you can get fined, not even meet your accuser, don't even have to cause damage, likely to incite some kind of thing, right? This was the online hate speech bill. Well, they have a new online hate speech bill specifically designed for criticizing global warming. It's perfect. It's amazing. Listen to this. This is Charlie Angus, who I've met. He is one of the dumbest people in Parliament as well, in Canada. Today, I am proud to rise, he says, and introduced a bill that would make the illegal false advertising by the oil and gas industry, Angus announced in the House of Commons. He added that the oil and gas sector was trafficking in disinformation and killing people. Angus also twice framed his bill as the dawn of the industry's big tobacco moment, an apparent reference to Canada's blanket federal ban on tobacco advertising. As written, the act would technically apply to any Canadian who's found to be speaking well of the oil industry or of oil generally. It is prohibited for a person to promote a fossil fuel-related brand element, or the production of a fossil fuel, reads the act. Violate this as a regular citizen, and the act prescribes a summary conviction and a fine of up to $500,000. Violate it as an oil company, and the punishment could be as strict as 2 years in jail and a fine of $1 million. So that's what they're going with over in Canada. Now, as that, keep that in your head for a second. Remember everything I just said about petrodollar, criticism, United States, NATO, Gazprom, you're a Russian ally, stooge if you don't believe it. But here's what our man, Peter Bryant. Peter Bryant is I would say an unsentimental Bitcoin trader. I've booked him for shows for years. I had him in 2018. He's online friends with Tur Demeester. I think he gave Tur a thank you this week for helping him survive all the bear markets with Bitcoin that he's managed to go through. But here's what he says. He says, breakout in crude, gold poised for massive breakout, stocks into new highs, Bitcoin soaring. What in the world is happening? This is all about the destruction of the US dollar, he says. Analysts tell us to be bearish stocks because of US debt load. Quite the opposite. Owning stocks is the same thing as being short the US dollar. Being long any asset, artwork, diamonds, real estate, crypto, stocks, you name it, is a short US dollar play. This is also reflected in inflation. This is why the destruction of the US dollar and other fiat currencies look like. And it looks like the thing is happening. It looks like as people's confidence in these systems is hitting an all-time low, confidence in US systems, confidence in the military, confidence in the media, confidence in the banking system and in the legal system, in the financial system, all of it, right? All of it. It looks like it's being expressed in these other narratives around Bitcoin, and I don't think there's any stopping it anymore. It looks like we're in for a 2024 where America completely reinvents itself as a Bitcoin nation. I can't see any other way out of it now. Now, there's definitely still some surprises. There's definitely still some stuff that we can't see for reasons that they haven't happened yet. And there probably is another big surprise to come. But nevertheless, it looks like Americans' ability to perceive these problems will end up changing America in a way that it will never be the same again. And the rest of the world will have some knock-on effect from this. Whether or not Canada can be saved, I don't know. Whether or not any of these other places can be saved, I don't know. We'll see. But the all-time high, all this energy, all this excitement isn't going anywhere. And it looks like America is in for totally different experience than we've had in the past couple of years. Much more fun. Much more fun. Ready for new all-time high in US trash tokens. Gene says, I believe Vivek has been on Safety Ian's Bitcoin Center. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, could be. Just remember, Bitcoin is so radical for all the normies. They have to be read in like a secret project. When you take someone's worldview and turn it inside out, they get fearful and irrational behavior blooms. Well, we're already there, veterans, aren't we? Huh? A lot of irrationality, but there's fewer and fewer of them. Thank you for your knowledge. You've orange-pilled a lot of folks that were blind. Jumper DCS world. We're doing our best. We got more to do. But aren't the smart and influential I mean, ETH is a joke. Which big guy owns that? Yeah, again, no, there are smart people over on that other side. A lot of dummies too, but there's pretty good ones. The crowd response was much bigger than Vex for sure. Yeah, Vivek's RFK's energy stump speech proves he understands Bitcoin. Yeah. All right, let me see what people are saying over on Rumble. Yeah, I'm feeling a little better today, guys. I'm not quite back, but I'm feeling much better. than I did even on Friday. I ate normally this weekend, mostly. Energy's coming back. Dang, I forgot my promo code in there again. A promo code to Space Drop, everyone. Promo code Space Drop. All right. Good afternoon, people. Wasabi versus Sparrow. Drew Sparrow, I would say. Atlas shrugged. Breaking up, Lance says. Stream stopping a lot. Is that so? Huh. Any words towards this weekend's Bitcoin Atlantis? Why were you not in it? I learned a ton from so many people. Some people are just idolized idiots like Mahler. Why was I not there? It's hard for me to leave Barbados at this time of year. I travel so much in the rest of the year, and I like all of us just to have these sort of 4 months where I don't go anywhere. So nor do the kids, nor does anyone. So I did have to really, 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 really prevent myself from going because I had a lot of FOMO. But that's why. It's just I enjoy my time here. I don't even leave my neighborhood where I am in Barbados. I mean, I don't even leave my neighborhood, right? So, and the minute I get back to America, I'll be going to Hong Kong and maybe the country where Bitcoin, all these rumors from this weekend, the Qataris, I'll be in Doha, I'll be in Qatar. So you never know. You never know. I've heard some stuff. That's why I'm heading there. So I like to go check things out before they blow up. I was in El Salvador in December 2019 for that reason. So I sort of know when these things are happening just through rumors, like all of you, not some incredibly special information, but I'll be going there. I'll be in Texas at the end of May. I'll be in Nashville for the summer, of course, for Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. You can get your tickets through promo code SpaceDrop. That'll work for you for a discount. Then I'll be in, of course, Amsterdam for a Bitcoin show there, and there'll be a few more. I'll also be at the Canadian Bitcoin show in July or June in Montreal, maybe July. I can't remember exactly the date, but I'll be there for that one too. And probably Abu Dhabi for the F1 in December. So a lot of travel this year, a lot of travel. We love travel. We love it. All right, let me get these, a few more of these. By the way, you should check your DMs on us. I do, Roy Koikup. I usually always check my DMs on Noster. Sluggo, no proof that the elections are not stolen. It should be possible to prove that the elections are correct. It is by design. For sure it's by design. Yeah. There you go. Don Bully, late, but still love the show. Great, man. I committed a hate crime. I got up at 5 a.m. Oh, Bitcoin, 65K. We love it. We love it. Isn't that fun? All right, let's see what the people on Bitcoin Magazine are saying. Let's see what the Bitcoin Magazine people are up to. Good morning, Bitcoiners. What a ride. Happy Monday, Bitcoin. 65K and climbing. Isn't it great? Good morning. Who is buying today? Good morning, Bitcoiners. It's not every day you can orange pill and onboard a small business. Not even close. Yeah. Only one party. Good morning. All right, team. That's all I got for today. I appreciate all of your time. Thanks for coming this morning. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sticking with my low energy in the last little while. No issues with the stream. Nolan, how do insane bills get introduced and elevated in the House of Commons? Absolutely nuts. Makes no sense. Okay, I can tell you the answer to that quick. If it's a private member's bill, a lot of weird negotiations and horse trading. Otherwise, the entire thing is run by the leadership of the House, and every one of the committees, when you get a majority, okay, in Parliament, which no one has, but if you do get a majority, you get to choose which chairs of committees are yours. Some are typically the chair goes to the opposition, so that's another story altogether, not really relevant. But what happens is, say you have 40% of the House, well, you get 40% of committee chairs on all committees. And then your leadership will put who they want in there. Then really it just all comes from the Prime Minister's office. The executive branch will tell the legislative branch what's a priority. It can supersede them. All committees, all committees have to put government legislation first on their agenda at all times. So if they're doing a study, like when I did one on Bitcoin, my Bitcoin study was launched the end of 2013. We got a budget the top of 2014. We didn't publish until 2015 because any legislation that comes through, your study gets put on the back burner for them until you pass the legislation or deny their legislation. So that's usually how it works. So it really is all political. There isn't really any way for the legislative branch to steer bills in the situation we have now. There is no way for them to steer them. So all you get, when they're absolutely nuts, it's because that's what the Prime Minister's office wants. Always. CK, no issues with the stream. Space drop. Have you heard? Yeah, well, nothing more than anyone else. Amsterdam for Bitcoin conference. Yes, sir. Bitcoin graffiti. We love China too. Yeah, we do love China. Don't you know? Can you pump it higher? Yeah, I tried to get the Scott, the Creed guy, on the picture today too with Sydney Sweeney. Did everyone love that this weekend, where someone paid him in one of those Medio things where you pay someone to do an address, and I guess ICO offender got him to put Ben Justman, the Peony Lane wine guys, and did a video for him. It was great. It was really great. Shout out to the CEO of Bitcoin, which was awesome. Can't wait to hear what you find out in Qatar. Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, corruption is top down. Yes, exactly, B-Man. It's totally top down. Yes, totally top down. Totally top down. I'm your cult leader. I'll take it. Thanks, Johnny Rico. Best morning show. I appreciate it. All right, team. That's all I got for today. I appreciate it. I shall see you all tomorrow. Thank